Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Yeah, hey, man, one of the things I have to talk to you about today is something that legit scares me, specifically around cost of capital, 30-year mortgage rate, right? You and I have talked about where we thought rates would go. I think it's fair to say we both saw them going up, but I didn't see it going up this fast. We both think that 6% is a number that really causes issues, and 7% would be, in my opinion, just stop the market. And that is what is called quantitative tightening. We have to go through this. We have a Fed balance sheet at over 8 trillion. We tried this before in 18, but the environment is different with 8.3% fictitious inflation. Look, Greg, I'm very nervous about QT. I think QT could send rates even higher. The Fed, this is how crazy I believe. The Fed could pause in September. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying they could. And QT will still cause mortgage rates to go up. I think rates are going to go much higher from here, and I'm scared. What do you think?
Yeah, so the Fed can pause what, their rate hikes? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying theoretically, if they paused, because most people think the Fed pauses, rates don't move. Fed pauses and QT, that could cause rates to go up. QT is that big a deal that nobody's thinking about.
Yeah. So, the Fed funds rate is what the banks charge each other. Okay. So that doesn't affect mortgage rates. What affects mortgage rates are treasuries, right? Because the capital that is weighing the delta between, hey, I can buy bonds that have zero risk at 3%, or I can buy mortgages that have risk at 5%. Well, that delta needs to be big enough for that capital pool to move one way or the other. So as, rates rise in bonds, which is what we're seeing, because the Fed has been buying mortgage-backed securities, they've been the biggest buyer, meaning driving those prices down because nobody's going to compete with them. So, that's what's been keeping those rates low. As they start to unwind that, then that reduces liquidity going in the market, which means you have to offer higher rates to attract people to buy those bonds. So it drives, rates up. So that's what we've been seeing. And, the other thing too, like a lot of people don't even understand how this works. So when they said that the Fed's QT program started, this month, that all of a sudden now they're selling bonds, that ain't happening. What's happening is they have a schedule. So the first thing they're stopping is the purchases. Correct. So they're just not buying. Then they're going to start the roll off, and you need to see how the roll off works and what areas they're rolling off. And, I think it's like $1 trillion that they want to unwind in the next 12 months. That's not a big deal. I mean, what's the balance sheet, like 7 trillion?
8.2.
8.2 trillion, the whole balance sheet. So 1 trillion, that's not really a big deal to release in the market over a certain period of time. What's the big deal is who's the buyer and what level are they buying at, and where are the rates going to go to attract those buyers. Exactly. That's what's really going on.
Exactly. That is the unknown. And again, I've gone back and researched 2018 because that's the only other time we tried quantitative tightening. We successfully did quantitative tightening right around, I'm just going to use round numbers, $500 billion. The Fed balance sheet, I believe at the time, was just shy of 4 trillion. They rolled off roughly 12% of that before it broke. Right. Overnight lending and the repo
and
market.
That was just, they quit buying. They didn't even start selling.
They did. They started selling for like 90 days.
Okay. Right? So they did roll off a little bit. Okay.
They did roll off a little bit. This is all research I did this weekend. The reason I'm doing this, because I am legit concerned. Like I've said for 6 months that the QT, the tightening, right, going from being the largest buyer to the largest seller is game changing. And
and that's where the narrative of the Fed's going to have to do something, because the narrative is they can't raise rates and QT at the same time and get a soft landing. And that's what I'm saying. There's no soft landing when you're doing all that.
No, I agree. And again, I think one of the things that you and I will see, and the average person will see once QT kicks in, because QT started, I think the first selling is the 15th, right? That's kind of their schedule, really rolling stuff off, and it'll pick up in 90 days. I suspect by the end of the year, again, picking timeframes like October, November, there might be a day where we see mortgage rates jump, and we're going to go, why? And it's because QT.
The reason we saw them jump so fast is because, they were still buying up until the end of April, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's when they stopped. So now all of a sudden, bam, that's why you saw that spike. And now when they sell, you'll see another spike. So, that's just mind boggling to think they were still buying up until the end of April. It's ridiculous. The damage that they've done to the housing market and what they've caused. And We talked about it for a couple of years. We were talking about, these new all-time highs being set, and I remember back in 2018, I was like, it's time to get out. It's time to get out when they started their QT.
Yeah.
And, boom, sure enough, the market dipped. And the only reason the V shape was because they stepped back in. So that's what Kathy Wood is
She's hoping for. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. It's not a projection. It's not a forecast. It's not a whatever. This is the only thing that's going to save me.
Yeah. So I think mortgage rates, I haven't checked this morning, but I think they're about, let's call it 5.3% for owner occupant good credit loans. Let's call it 5.25% just for round numbers. I think QT might take it to over 6 sometime. Again, people go back and watch our videos. I thought we would top out like 5.7, 5.8 this year. With QT kicking in, with the Fed not pausing in September, I think the 30-year mortgage rate might get over 6%. And that's game changing. You've talked about that a couple times.
Yeah. And the 5, 10, and the 30 are all over 3% right now in bonds.
Oh, the 10 went over 3. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So, that's what's really going to drive it right there. And yeah, you start getting into, the upper fives, we already see what's happening, at 5% because of where we came from. We're seeing corrections, all across the country, but the markets that are still red hot, you get into the 6 or 7s, that ends that.
Yeah. Again, folks, we've seen this environment. I've gone back to the 1979 to 82 period where rates shot up because it got Paul Volcker to rug pulled or whatever you want to call it. Housing transactions were cut in half like that, right? You still had some deals. Some people still buy cash. You still have some creative deals, but the housing market, the market stops. Buyer, seller stops. It just, because again, think about a seller.
It stops at the price levels we're at.
Correct.
Because, it still goes. I bought a house at, 9% interest and, so it's just levels, so the affordability, because, the prices have to adjust. So certain houses make sense at 7, 8, 9, 10.
Agreed.
My parents' first house, they were paying 14%, but
some number. Yes.
That house was probably 50 grand or 60 grand or whatever, when they bought it. So, it just has to correct. The interesting thing, what's really interesting is, so you have the perfect storm coming. You've got rates exponentially rising. If they spike again going into the summer, that's a big correction because the summer slows down anyways. June, July, August, those are your slowest months in the housing market.
Yeah.
Where things will sit, traffic dies because everybody's, on vacation. Now you have inflation where people are like, wait a minute. So, it's actually 3, I didn't really add. So you have inflation that's affecting their disposable income.
Correct.
Now you have rising interest rates, which is driving the cost up. So people that normally said, I could squeeze out an extra $500 a month for that house, that $500 a month's gone now. They don't have it. And then you have the summer slowdown coming. So you have all 3 of these things attacking the housing market at the same time.
You got one more. You got one more. You have the fear of unemployment doubling. People layoffs and job security. Now people are even nervous. I don't know that I can sign that. I don't know if husband and wife will keep their jobs. So you have just a ton of negativity coming at this, I think.
Which is a positive. So
which is a positive. Exactly.
Needs to correct. We need more inventory. We need more accessibility for people that want to buy a house that have been priced out, haven't been able to. So for people watching, this is all good. So all of these things I'm saying are the things to watch that are going to lead to a correction that's going to present the opportunity for prices to come down where people can buy. Sure, you'll be paying, your interest rate is going to be higher, but what you're paying is lower. And then when we get through this, rates will correct and you'll be able to refinance, once we get, on the other side of all this. So it'll be a temporary thing, but, it's really, it's just fascinating. And, these are the things that, we have that are in front of us now that are going to really, affect this housing. But QT is a big one that a lot of people don't understand, really aren't paying attention to. And, the last thing on there too is like sellers.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind how many sellers always jump in at the end after the correction for FOMO, like, man, I want to cash in and sell my house now.
Yeah.
It's like, so, that's the other thing on top of all these other things. This is when sellers are going to jump in mass and start listing their houses. Now, granted, most of them are unmotivated and they're like, I've got a couple of clients in that boat that thought, hey, I could get X for my house. I'm going to put it on the market. And they found out, I'm a little bit late. Yep. So they just pulled it off the market and said, I don't have to move. I don't have to leave, but if somebody will pay me this, I'll move.
Yeah. Wish pricing is what I call that. Again, the housing market is something I've studied for 30 years. The interest rates, payments, it's always about affordability. The one thing that I think we're going to see in this environment is it's going to be very sticky on the way down. I think everything we've talked about, I think the only place you and I disagree is timing. I think you think it'll happen. The dominoes will fall just a little bit faster than I think, but it's going to be fascinating to watch. And this is the one thing we agree on is this is just starting. It is just starting. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. And the caveat is the Fed. It's inflation and it's the Fed. If inflation all of a sudden just, everything opens up and all these prices come way down, then that changes things. And then the Fed can change course. But until inflation's under control, they can't change. And for everybody watching, go study Japan, the lost decade. Go study what's happening in Turkey right now. Again, very different economies than us. Japan was probably more closer to a better structured economy than Turkey or Venezuela, or these other places that have seen hyperinflation. Japan's not seen hyperinflation. They couldn't get inflation.
Yeah, they couldn't.
And, they had stagflation for 10 years, which is the result of too much, junk going out in the system too long. So, interesting times. And I can't believe we didn't have inflation other than the asset level before, the pandemic and all this started happening. I was just dumbfounded that we weren't seeing more inflation at the consumer level. We talked about that over and over.
We did. Yeah. It's a crazy time. I do think QT is I think it's a pretty well unknown. And I think it's kind of the unknown unknowable, right? I think I put a video out the other day that QT is going to break something. We just don't know when, we don't know how bad, and we don't know what it'll be. So buckle up.
Well, the Fed has changed their operandus modi, whatever you call it, their MO.
Yeah, there you go.
Modus operandi. That's what
there you go.
They've changed their MO from steady as she goes to move fast and break something.
Yeah, exactly. They're
in startup mode. Go fast and break stuff.
Yeah. And I think they are like, we'll start a fire. We don't know what it will be, but we'll put it out when it starts. This QT's legit has me concerned. So Greg, we'll be talking about stuff like this every week. You have a playlist on this channel with hundreds of hours. Thank you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. Go check it out. All my social media links are there, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, buddy.